Hello, Vanguard Discovery Camp. My name is Dr. Thomas Smith, and I'm the Dean of Math and Science. And today I'm going to be talking about marsh madness. So today we're going to look at marshes, and specifically we're going to look at wetlands. And wetlands are, as you would kind of tell, they are wet and they are part of the water cycle. And water is very important to us and to everything actually on Earth. 2/3 of the Earth is covered by water, and all life requires water. And then water is the universal solvent, so it will break down most particular compounds, from rocks to food that you get stuck on pots and pans. Water also is a great transport for minerals and nutrients as it flows from one location to the next. And there are many, many different animals and plants, and we will see some today that actually live in water. Now, water is it's really important, as I actually just said, and it actually is part of the water cycle. And the water cycle, we'll see some of this today, but the largest area that we have that has water are the oceans. And that is kind of like the storage location of water. And then as water actually heats up, it actually evaporates and then it condenses. So as water moves higher in the atmosphere, it actually cools down. And as it cools down, the water molecules get closer together and they can undergo condensation, forming clouds. And if enough of those water vapor particles, molecules actually come together, they will get a little bit too heavy and we'll have precipitation occurring. And precipitation can occur in multiple different ways and different forms, depending on the temperature. So if it is cold, so at least below 0 degrees Celsius, it's going to be as snow or ice or hail. If it is above that, it will actually be as a form of liquid water. And then as the water actually strikes the earth, it will come down, and it has two different things to do. It will actually go penetrate, infiltrate into the ground. And when the ground air spaces get filled up, then the water will move from infiltration, going into the groundwater, to runoff over the surface of the ground. Now, as the water actually starts to accumulate, it will actually form streams, and some of it also will actually be taken up by plants. And then plants can actually also undergo evaporation, called evapotranspiration, part of its photosynthesis cycle, and release the water back up into the atmosphere. But as the water flows down the hills in streams as runoff, it can actually be stored into lakes, into ponds, and eventually it can be stored in wetlands. So today, what we're going to look at, we have two particular activities. One, we are going to look at the effective temperature on air. So we're going to have 3 pillows of 3 plastic containers that actually have air in it, and we're going to put them in a heated oven. We're going to look at it at room temperature and look at it at a freezer and look at the effect of temperature on air. And we're also going to, I'll demonstrate the formation of a cloud or fog inside a soda bottle. So let's go to the lab and look at that. Now, that was actually pretty interesting, wasn't it? The soda bottle making a cloud, the pillows of air, and seeing how they were actually affected by by temperature. Now, as I said before, the water will actually come down into wetlands, and the wetland area is just like you would think that wetlands are covered in water at some time of the year. It doesn't have to be, every day of the year, but at least for a period of time. And this particular period of time will affect the type of plants and animals that actually live in this particular area. So you might not see water in that particular area, but it is a wetland based upon the type of plants that live there. And another thing that we can actually look at is the soil. So the wetlands also support a great variety of aquatic and terrestrial species. So animals and plants that live in water areas and live in not water areas, in terrestrial environments. So let's go out into the wetland and look at that. Now, as you can see from our particular wetland, wetlands are very, very important because they hold water for plants and animals. Now, also wetlands are like sponges. And so as like a sponge will actually take up and hold water, so do wetlands. So wetlands, one particular great function of them is to prevent floods from occurring. And wetlands would be kind of the last particular areas that would actually dry out during drought times. And just like kind of a sponge, it pulls and holds things. Wetlands help to filter out any particular kind of pollutants or soil inside the water column. Now, you also have a lot of water in these particular wetlands, and some of this water will start to percolate, infiltrate into the ground, creating more groundwater. And then, lastly, I'm not sure if you've ever been to a wetland, but they provide a lot of recreational needs for us, for people. Now, as I said, was talking about before, is that the soils are relatively important, and you can actually see that their particular soils are a little bit more unique, and their particular soils are called hydric soils. And if you would dig down, and we're going to do this in a second, but if you dig down into the wetland soil, what we'll actually see is a lot of organic material within the top 8 centimeters. And we will probably see a lot of material, organic material, leaf material, and probably in our particular wetland, pine needles that actually have not decayed yet. And if we would dig down a little bit further, we would probably start to smell hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide smells like rotten eggs. And this is caused by a bacteria that uses the sulfur as an energy source, and they use and make hydrogen sulfide. And this is all done in an anaerobic environment. Anaerobic environment means this environment has no oxygen. So you will actually smell the hydrogen sulfide if we actually dig a little bit deeper. Now, as we will actually see, is that the wetland has a lot of different animals, a lot of different plants, a lot of different animals that will eat the animals. And this all looks like kind of, if you want to kind of think about this, we can put them into kind of what it's called the pyramid. And this is a wetland trophic pyramid. And we know what a wetland is. It contains water, at least for part of the year. We know what a pyramid is, 3-sided. And But what is trophic? Trophic actually means feeding. So we have a feeding pyramid. So what is eating or what is happening at these different levels of the particular pyramid? So at the base of the pyramid, we have the plants. The plants are the producers, and they are auto-feeding. They self-feed because they produce their own food through photosynthesis. Now, we also have animals that actually are feeding upon the producers, and these are called herbivores. So we have Daphnia and we have isopods, and these are primary consumers. We also have primary predators, so animals that feed on other animals. So we have maybe a dragonfly larvae, and this is a giant water bug. These are secondary consumers also. We also have secondary predators, and these are like fish. And these are also tertiary consumers. And the herbivores, the primary predators and the secondary predators are all of them are heterotrophic. They feed on other items, or they do not produce their own food. Now, at the base of this, we have the soil, and we have the detritivores, so like worms and larvae and mushrooms or something to that extent. And these are all heterotrophic also because they are not producing their own food. But anything that kind of dies or it needs decay, needs to be recycled within the system, they are the ones that are going to do that. And this also would consider to be the bacteria. Now we're going to go out into the wetland again, and we are going to sample the organisms. We're going to look at the community, and we're going to look at, we're going to sample in two different ways. We're going to use the plankton net, and we're going to use the D net. And I'll show you those two pieces of sampling equipment when we get out to the wetland. Now we're back into the lab, and we are going to look at the slide underneath the microscope. And this is the neat stuff that we can actually see in pond water or wetlands. And we're going to look at a genus called Euglena. Now, this is actually very, very, very interesting. This particular species is, this is a plant, but this plant actually moves just like animals do. And you see this red eye spot here, and this red eye spot helps them to perceive light. So here we have a plant that moves. Here we have a plant that actually sees light and moves towards that light. And you can see they have the flagellum here at the end of one of the terminal ends, and it helps them to move from one location to the next. So that is a plant. So that would be one of the producers. That would be an autotrophic organism. Now let's look at something else. Oh, this is really neat too. This is an animal. This is one of the herbivores. And this is called a paramecium. So you can actually see they're kind of right there in the center. They have what's called a gullet, and they have cilia that moves around, and it tries to funnel some of these little algal species, little plants, into the particular gullet. And you can see inside that they do have some particular species, algal species, inside them. And lastly, we're going to look at one of the primary predators. This is a paramecium. The paramecium, the amoeba So now we're on to the primary predator, and it is the amoeba. And the amoeba is a primary predator. It is heterotrophic, just like the paramecium. And here we see a paramecium inside, and the amoeba actually has these structures called pseudopody, which means false feet. And what it's doing, it's creating a vesicle, a food vesicle around this paramecium, and eventually it's going to dissolve it with different enzymes and to actually break it down, which is very, very neat. So we actually have seen primary producers, primary consumers, we have primary predators. And so we've seen autotrophs and heterotrophs, we've seen the microscopic world, and we've also seen within our, for the DNAT, we also saw that there is water boatmen, and we saw the dragonfly larvae that are also part of those secondary consumers. We also saw some of the detritivores, some of the worms that are actually just within the water, and they were helping to break down some of the organic material, and especially like the leaves. Now, I hope you have a good day, and I think we had a good time kind of discussing wetlands and marsh madness. All right, have a good day.